We were inside the enemy's home. It was indescribable. They had been ready for us, but we were so fired up and fueled by self-belief that we managed to seize the Sol battle platform, ready for the ultimate Earth strike. We regrouped and tried to keep our minds off the dangers. There was no chance of sending out any scouts. The whole system was crawling with Navy craft. And however powerful we felt, we were still just tiny blips on their scanners. But with our supply channels in place, we were getting bigger. It was beginning to feel like a descent into hell. They were dark times, and the fleet was taking serious damage. But the nearer we got, the harder it became to turn back. The Navy was on full alert now, poised to decimate our incursion into its territory. They had awesome reserves of firepower. We hadn't expected it to be any other way, but facing them in battle was truly terrifying. Their hardware was ranged against us, and there was almost nowhere left to run. To reach our target now, we had to do more than damage the Navy. We had to destroy their will to fight. We had done well. Whatever happened, the League had broken the Empire's grip throughout the colonized worlds. To that extent, the job was done. But that wasn't enough. We knew the Father and the Tsar remained on a collision course. The Father could never accept a universe in which the Tsar still exercised his doctrines of greed and theft. As for the Tsar, his huge armed forces spoke for him. We wondered what else he might be ready to add to the argument. There was still much to be done before we could silence him forever. We could feel the heat of Sol as we drew close to the Earth. This was the place our ancestors had set out from so long ago. Now, though, the Earth signified nothing to us except tyranny and oppression. It was a war that left a legacy of pain and destruction. Now it was within our power to consign centuries of genocide to the wastes of history. With one final assault, we could avenge our forefathers and destroy the Empire forever. That was what we believed and what we hoped for. It was up to us now, and us alone. The surrender of Diomedes was chaotic, but the full retreat from the system was worse. Shattered League ships crept back to the panic of Galenaia as the Navy tore through Diomedes, annihilating last pockets of resistance before they too turned on Galenaia. And now the judgment comes to pass. Dreadnoughts and destroyers spilled through the warp hole, and behind them came Tsunami, the Tsar's personal super titan. I have never before witnessed such a creation. Destruction is its only purpose. It has come here to wipe away the memory of the League and the Father. It has come to wreak the Tsar's vengeance. As we wait for death to sweep us away, I can only leave this recording to the vapors of space and hope that one of our kind lives to witness its message. And the lesson we have learned after these centuries of struggle: the Empire is all. It will never be defeated. Never. When the command craft docked and the sellout began, we realized the dream was over. At least, the ideals that the League had represented were finished. For a few treacherous vermin, the League now offered a passport to comfort and wealth. They had made peace with the enemy. Their deal was this: in return for the chance to fly back to the colonies boasting of victory over the Empire, the faction would ensure that theft and oppression could continue unchecked. The colonies welcomed back the League fleet and hailed them as heroes. But as the fanfares faded, the old life returned. The faction made sure that the Earth was serviced with the resources it needed, and the colonies supplied what they had, until there was nothing left to give. Most of my loyal comrades were executed by the faction. Just a handful managed to escape. One day I hope we might rise again. The League's caucus for peace met with the Empire command as soon as the faction had been dispatched to the past. The Navy could never concentrate its force enough to finish us. To do so would have been to invite rebellion in whichever systems their battle forces left. And despite the vast reserves of anger and resentment that the League pilots harbored, the Empire could never be toppled by our meager resources. To our joy, the League was granted independence from Earth. However, the Father conceded that as the planet had been the birthplace of our species, we owed it to our ancestors to contribute to its survival. Task forces were sent to the Sol system from each colonial world, and stability was maintained. All my life has been lived listening to the sounds of battle. Now the star systems echo only to the sounds of the rebuilding. I scarcely comprehend it. It's a very strange music to me. It was something we should have known. The Empire could never afford to be defeated in its own system. Draco might have fallen to the League, but Sol was not negotiable. The Empire would rather die struggling than allow the League to wrest control of the Earth. So the League fled, sealing the warp hole as it went. With that action, Sol was consigned to a slow and lingering death. Reports were hard to come by as we tried to satisfy ourselves with our grim victory. But they said that inside the ruined star system, a civil war was raging. The mighty Empire was tearing itself apart, fighting over the scraps that were left. It was no more than it deserved. And yet, should we have dispensed such a cruel form of death on our enemies? So many of them were loyal to the Empire by birth alone. Were they inherently evil? Whatever we felt, they were truly suffering now. At last, it was time for our species to move on. I suppose there were those in the League who felt pride, but I couldn't dig out such an emotion. I was exhausted. I could hardly comprehend that the war was over, and now I felt simply drained. The unconditional surrender had come from the heart of the Empire. We assumed this meant the Tsar was still alive. But once the drop to Earth had been made, and the League had scoured the Imperial Palace, it brought back only one message. The Tsar was gone. He had vanished. In those months and years following the bloodshed, the people of Sol left their homes and made new life on the fertile colony worlds. I often wonder whether they find life without the Empire as strange as I find life without the League. Now that the struggle is over and the worlds rule themselves, something seems to be missing, though it isn't something I'd ever want to return.